Well.
Chandler, we were back with another episode of Pop Apologists.
Lauren, I got a blowout today right before this recording. I actually got my hair done. And I'm just longing for the days where we can have full glam before recording and just, plop into our studio chair and, just fully record with a very easy process. And those days are probably never going to happen, but I dream.
Yeah. It's nice that you're dreaming big. I think even just the dream of having more time to do your own glam because maybe you aren't, working away at a full-time job could potentially be a more realistic dream for this podcast.
I thought you were talking about my lack of good makeup. You're like, maybe if you had just a little bit more time too to do an actually good job.
If you could just groom yourself and not rely on someone to come and groom you. Exactly.
Anyway, how are you?
Well, you look beautiful. I'm good. Thanks for asking. I'm just off the heels of my anniversary weekend. Okay.
Oh my gosh. I've just been dying.
I know.
Of excitement for you. 1 year of marriage.
I know. And it's after 1 year of marriage, Kagan and I have decided to stay together to inspire everyone with our commitment of being together for 1 full year. Wow. We're just hoping to give inspiration to everyone who believes in marriage nationwide.
Monogamy has never felt like a greater thing to believe in. Wait, you have to do the Heather Dubrow thing where you say we've been married for 1 year but together for 8.
No,
or whatever.
I'm loving being only together. Now it's our 1 year anniversary. Like anytime someone asks me how long Kate and I've been together, I'm now going to start just going back to the wedding date. So
why?
Because I feel like it's younger and sexier. So if someone asks me, I'll just be like, because I don't want to lie. So I can't be like, oh, we've been together for 5 years. So I'm going to say is, 6 months ago, we celebrated our first anniversary. That's what I'll say.
Giving people a math problem to do. 8 months ago, we celebrated our 1.5 year anniversary of being together for 3.5 years.
I'll just say we recently celebrated our 1 year anniversary. That's what I'm going to say for the next 12 months.
I don't know. There's something about 1 year anniversary that just sounds so like wah wah.
No, I know.
No
that's why they're going to be like, look at these two. They're probably having so much sex. They're just so obsessed with each other. They're in the very beginning. Okay.
Wow.
I might do a vow renewal every 5 years too to restart the clock.
I would love that just for the party alone. Lord knows you throw one hell of a party.
Well, I definitely can't afford it. So maybe every 20 years. But anyway, so I chatted with my friend Isabella because, Chandler, this is my first wedding anniversary, so I don't know necessarily what to expect, right? I don't know why this felt different from – actually, I do know why. Kagan and I never really celebrated anniversaries because we could never agree when we started dating.
Is there a discrepancy in, like, the facts?
I always wanted to backdate to our first date, and he always wanted it to be, like, when we became official. But for me, I wasn't dating anyone else when we were courting.
Men are so annoying like that. They like want to stick to like the facts.
I felt like it was like he didn't want, on some level, it was like, because I had my strict 2 year timeline for when he needed to propose.
Oh,
so I think he wanted some breathing room, which I was not ready to give him.
Yeah, that's annoying. Ben did the same thing, but our anniversary is our first date.
So Kagan and I never really celebrated anniversaries because we never agreed on a date. So really with our first wedding anniversary approaching nigh at hand, Chandler, I have to tell you, I really didn't know how to go about this because...
Wow, I didn't know this about you guys.
Yeah, well, now you do. You're learning something new about me every day. I'm an onion.
I'm so
layer
lucky.
by layer, piece by piece, Chandler. Yes, you're so lucky. So anyway, I didn't know what to do because I didn't know if anniversaries are this reciprocal thing where I get him a card and a gift, he gets me a card and a gift. Mm-hmm. Maybe we go on a trip. Maybe there's like a
huge ring,
a diamond upgrade. What really is in store? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, long story short, I just kind of did nothing and kind of treated it like Valentine's Day.
Okay.
And Kagan, very sweetly, he got me a card. He got me flowers. He got some pastries for us. I know that it was all done the morning of our anniversary, but you know what? I was happy with it. I was thrilled. And so anyway, but I didn't do kind of anything. So I'm curious.
Good.
Like, Have I failed as a wife?
No, absolutely not.
What do you do on your anniversary?
I wait for my gifts to arrive.
Okay. Wait.
Well,
this
no,
makes
I mean,
me feel
there's, I do like a card, and sometimes we've exchanged gifts, but our anniversary happens to be January 16th, so it's coming up. It will be 3 years. We've been together for 3, engaged for 6 months. And anyway, so sometimes I get a Christmas and anniversary gift rolled together if I want a higher ticket item. I don't know. We're not huge like gift exchangers, but I think a card is a given, and
from
a
each
nice
of you
dinner
to
is a
each,
given.
to the other person. So you get him a card too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do get him a card always.
See, I get Kagan a card for his birthday, a gift for Christmas, but on Valentine's, I don't know. I feel like most of the time,
no, you don't do a card on Valentine's Day.
Me.
Like maybe you are a bad wife. Maybe you should get a divorce.
Honestly,
he should divorce you.
I feel like I have amnesia. Anyway, I texted Courtney and I was like, okay, help. Do you write Wyatt a card on Valentine's and your anniversary? Or are those holidays more about anniversary tokens from him to you?
For the record, I've never seen that bitch write a card in her life.
She said, I don't do much. I just like to receive. So this was also very vindicating.
Yes.
And can I tell you like the real honest truth?
Because you've been lying this whole time before.
Guys, this is going to make him sound so bad. I know he loves me. We have a beautiful relationship. But he's not the most sentimental of guys. Mm-hmm. He's really not. I just don't see him like one time he was literally throwing away stuff in his office and he said, should I keep these cards you give me? Referring to birthday cards and probably a few Valentine's cards.
That were probably like 2 pages each. Like, yeah.
And the thing is I get so specific and hold myself to a high standard of like writing and stuff. It can't be just platitudes and cliches.
Just say it.
I found
you were the editor of the BYU literary magazine.
Actually,
don't make us beg for it.
Thank you for bringing it up because honestly, I wasn't sure if some people didn't know that used to be my job in college. So I was the editor-in-chief of Inscape, okay, a journal of art and literature. Thank you, Chandler, for 8 months during my sophomore year of college or junior year or whatever. Anyway, yes. So again, I don't know. I got demotivated about the card thing and I do feel like I failed.
No, I think that's fair. If words of affection or whatever, words of affirmation are not his love language, if he doesn't receive them and cherish them, I think it's okay for you to roll back on that.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's like sometimes I don't know, men are just so ineffable to me. They're so mysterious. Like I don't know that they receive these tokens in the same way a lot of times women do.
No, they absolutely do not. I mean,
like, does Ben love your cards? Does he cherish them?
That you bring this up because yeah, especially when we were long distance, we would like write each other cards and letters and whatnot. Nothing crazy, but like, we would do that. Especially I always was like, the person starting the card, chain, and then he would send them back or whatever. But this weekend, he actually sold his like little nightstand on Facebook Marketplace. And as he's literally handing, the woman the nightstand, he said he heard something rustling around in there. And it was all of our letters that I'd written, all the letters I'd written him. Stop. Like that were like stuffed behind the drawer that were like they weren't invisible, I'm sure, because they were like underneath the drawer. Anyway, he almost gave them all away to this woman.
This is what leads me to be less motivated to write a card. It's that kind of treatment of our tokens of devotion.
And like you said, it's like you painstakingly think of specific things that, will reveal new details that you've noticed about your love.
And sometimes you just, for what exactly? Exactly. So I would love listeners, I would love to hear from you. Send us a DM. I'm just super curious what you guys think, how you approach anniversaries and Valentine's Day with your husbands or your, this is really a female to male situation. I'm very curious how you approach that. You know what, Chandler, would make a stunning gift if anyone has any anniversaries or Valentine's Day is coming up in 2.5 months or for Christmas even. Do yourself a favor and try an early bird CBD gummy. Are these not, Chandler, just the most fabulous, most incredible CBD and THC gummies you've ever had?
Yes. They have replaced any other CBD akin gummy in my life. They're all I use. I want to talk about one aspect of them that I feel like maybe we haven't touched on enough. And I don't know if you experience this as well, but if I'm watching a TV show that's fun or funny, they make me so giggly in a way that is so enjoyable. And I don't know, it's really fun.
If I'm watching a show, I can so often be like, oh, I should check that email. I got to respond to that client. I need to do this thing. It's hard for me to concentrate, but I do feel like if I take a gummy and then start a show like an hour later, I'm way more zoned in on the show.
Right.
I'm way more relaxed in my brain. It's kind of more quieted down. And yes, I'm able to suspend my disbelief more. It truly makes viewing experiences better.
So your credulity doesn't get strained as easily.
My credulity goes so much less strained than normal. Okay. It's incredible. Exactly.
Amazing.
Everyone, you need to go to earlybirdcbd.com. Use code POPAPOLOGIST. You can get 20% off your order. Please try these gummies. They have a microdose of THC, 2.5 milligrams, and 12.5 milligrams of CBD. So it is just the nicest, warmest, we always say gooeyest feeling. We're obsessed. Earlybirdcbd.com. Use code POPAPOLOGIST for 20% off. Okay. Chandler, what's been going on with you recently?
Well, Lauren, it's funny you ask. I really had nothing to bring to the table in terms of personal stories until this morning rolled around. And, you know, it's just a normal morning for myself in New York. And Ben, and I just want to say.
Just a girl in the city.
Just a girl in the
city. Living her life.
My Carrie Bradshaw life. Well, it's or the reason why I say, you know, a normal day in the city is because I want to tell you, first and foremost, this story will hopefully just add a dose of reality to maybe any time that I glamorize living in New York. Are you ready?
Oh, I'm so ready.
So Ben needed his car to go to the shop. There's a check engine light, whatever, boring details. And Ben was coming to pick up the car to take it. And upon receiving the car, they looked underneath the hood. And do you know what they discovered underneath the hood, Lauren?
I'm nervous. A rat.
A crab. A little crab.
A crab?
A crab that had been fully eaten. A crab shell. Crab like hard shell. Okay. That was from a rat that had dragged it from the garbage of like a seafood store to the underneath the hood of Ben's car, which is where it had been nesting and living for the past week, because that's the last time we like drove it a week ago. There was literally like rat droppings, you know, you can picture it. So that is what we were dealing with this morning. And for those reasons, the guy couldn't even take the car because they were like, we don't know what's going to happen with the engine or whatever. They didn't want the liability, as mom would say. Anyway, that was my morning this morning, was dealing with the rat living inside our car, basically rent free.
You know, honestly, these little unsavory details, they do make me feel a lot better about never having lived in the glittering island of Manhattan. So thank you. Thank you, Chandler. Oh, but that's honestly disgusting.
It's disgusting. And this is not uncommon as well.
So the rat just dragged out of the trash and then thought your car looked like a good place to nest and brought it up to eat.
Like rats,
like you will get your Uber Eats and then bring it onto your
literally
couch.
It was just like, yes, it was precisely, it was having its surf and turf within the hood of Ben's car. And I don't know how cars work, but you know, there's a way for a rat to crawl up and underneath the hood. I'm not sure from where, but rats like will oftentimes like make a little nest inside the hood of the car. Anyway,
and then what happens when you drive it again? Do you turn it on and the rat like catches on fire, or what happens?
Well, I don't know. Thankfully, we weren't driving it, but I think they can like chew through wires or whatever. They can do serious damage.
Was the rat still in there? Or it's just the crab?
No, the rat was not in there. It was just the crab and the nest.
The rat that got
just
away.
The leftovers. Yeah.
Wow. Anyway, well, thank you so much for that, Chandler.
I love living here. I love paying so much money in rent. I love this city.
Should we do a little top line, just a little administrative notes, little conversation with our listeners really quick? Okay. Come to Jesus moment of sorts.
Yeah. I don't know what you've got in store, but yes, please, let's do it.
Okay. So I put out a call out on Instagram and I said, folks, we got to know, is there ever something where you see it in the title of the episode and you're like, I'm not interested. I don't care about Taylor Swift. I don't care about reality television. I don't care about celebrities. There's something that makes you skip an episode?
Yeah.
And it was very interesting to get the responses. So I shared a little bit on stories, what people had to say. And honestly, the reason for this is I think sometimes you and I, we pick topics because we think this is what people want to hear about. Like we will say like, this is what everyone's covering. Like you and I truly started watching The Golden Bachelor because we were like, we stopped watching The Bachelor because we thought it was so boring. And we're like, we don't honestly care that
Sure.
a lot of people like it and there's a thriving podcast industry around it. But we just are so fatigued by this show and not into it. Anyway, so it was funny because a couple months ago, we had a conversation where we're like, we need to start watching more shows to talk about more shows on the podcast.
Right.
And what was really fascinating to me was when I got the responses, basically, Chandler, the key thing that people really don't want are TV recaps. Like they just don't want play-by-play TV recaps. They don't want Housewives. Basically, the gist of it is like not super into Bravo, not super into The Bachelor.
Yes. And honestly, this was earth-shattering to us. And I've actually gotten this feedback in person.
Oh, really?
About people who don't really like Housewives, but they're kind enough to say, we like hearing you guys just like chat, about whatever, about any subject. So we'll listen to the Housewives recap, but they're like, I don't watch and I don't know anyone you're talking about.
Yeah. And so I think I'm actually feeling super relieved about this because I think what we're going to do moving forward is really just discuss stuff if something really juicy has happened. Like if there's something in an episode where it's like, hey, we have to debrief about this because it's so good. Kind of like we never really recapped Vanderpump Rules, but then we got into Scandival when that shook the nation. And I think that, I think we'll probably do something similar moving forward.
And I think this is on kind of chart or on course with where we've been heading because in general, we don't watch all of the Housewives franchises.
Correct. Yeah.
And, there are just like plenty of weeks where the show is pretty humdrum or it's just a filler episode. And so I think this will be better for everyone all around. And we were already kind of like not doing a lot of Housewives content.
That said, Chandler, I want to chat with you about Oprah making headlines, okay? Because, she posted a photo in a beautiful purple gown and she said, it's a purple kind of night, off to the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures gala with the color purple family, okay?
Love it. Great caption, Oprah.
Jan, fans were shocked, okay?
Yeah.
Because Oprah was stepping out with a noticeably svelter frame, okay? Distinctly more diminutive. And the reason why I think people were confused by this is Oprah, basically, like, her struggles with weight loss have been broadcast for forever. So it was shocking, I think, for fans to see her have such a dramatic weight loss so quickly.
Right.
And a lot of people think that Oprah is hitting the Ozempic, okay? Hitting the GLP-1 agonist.
Which I think is what any celebrity who steps out with a radically different figure, I think that's just the conclusion that everyone's making.
Yes, exactly. It's just something seems self-evident. And that wouldn't really make headlines or be that interesting to me, except for the fact that she came out against Ozempic about 3 months ago.
Yeah. And
basically there's this quote in the headlines where she was like, taking Ozempic would be the easy way out. And so I really don't want to do it, is essentially what she said.
Yeah.
She walked it back majorly because she got a lot of backlash for that. But now, obviously, she is on some sort of GLP-1 agonist for anyone with eyes. So I was reading online about this, and this is what someone wrote. They said, she won't promote Ozempic in the media because she has invested in a different semaglutide product for Weight Watchers. Obviously, she wants to say Ozempic is bad so she can sell more of Weight Watchers' version of it. And what's interesting about that is Weight Watchers has bought a company called Sequence, which is a telehealth company that distributes GLP-1 agonists. And so Weight Watchers is fully getting into the semaglutide game. And so, yeah, I find it to be very interesting.
Yeah, she, this is a terrible pun, but she stands to gain a lot if this product does well. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people have made headlines about, talking negatively about Ozempic, and then they end up having to walk it back.
They have to eat their words, or at least make
it
it clear that they've been eating very little with the help of a GLP-1 agonist at some point.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, I just thought that was interesting. Wanted to bring it to the fore.
Lauren, I actually don't really care about Ozempic and Oprah. Like, together, it's not a big deal. But I just always want to know about her love life. Like, she has this man, right? She's always Stedman?
Stedman, yeah. Oh, so I have to say Regis, but different older man. One's
is
deceased.
Regis dead? I think Regis is dead.
He is deceased, yes.
That always shocks me that Regis is dead. Sorry. May God rest his soul. But yeah, I would love Oprah to do like, I would love a reality show with her and Stedman. I'd love a book. I want more. I want to hear about it. Or like, weren't they on again, off again? It just seems juicy.
It does seem juicy. They never got married, never had children.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very interesting. I would love to know if Oprah's ever talked about that decision to not have kids and to not get married.
Oprah might be a good deep dive.
Oprah would be. I think Oprah could be a very good deep dive. I agree. Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's not much to this. Who like honestly, for me, anytime it's like, you know, this person's a lot thinner, they're probably on Ozempic. I think it's so boring at this point.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Who cares? But I do think it's interesting, I guess, on like a more macro level, that these companies that are centered around helping people lose weight and have been doing this for decades are suddenly like, we can just actually get in the semaglutide game,
right?
And we can pivot completely towards that, and it probably have 100 times the success, 1,000 times the success.
Yeah, very curious to see how they roll that out.
Okay, let's talk about the most delicious protein powder on the face of the planet, Chandler. Clean Simple Eats.
I said this when I posted about it a couple weeks ago. It's my longest relationship. I have literally been faithful to this protein powder since college.
I truly don't know how they do it, but the protein powder mixed with water and ice alone, guys, it tastes like a Wendy's Frosty.
Add a banana. Add some strawberries to the vanilla one. Add a splash of half and half. The trick you taught me. It's so good. It's perfect.
The problem is that most protein powders really taste like crap and you don't know what's in them. This tastes delicious. And they also use clean grass-fed ingredients. So it's just so, so good. Guys, go to cleansimpleeats.com. Use code POPAPOLOGIST for 10% off. You can use this code as many times as you want. So please go to cleansimpleeats.com. Use code POPAPOLOGIST. Try the Simply Vanilla, the chocolate brownie batter. This protein powder is just fabulous.
I'm a lifer with Clean Simple Eats.
Cleansimpleeats.com. Use code POPAPOLOGIST for 10% off. Okay, Chan. So another piece of news that we need to get into is that, I don't know if you remember this. I'm sure we all do. We all remember all too well. But Harry and Meghan sat down with Oprah in Santa Barbara for a little interview with Oprah.
Boy, do I ever.
Essentially, the accusation that they leveled that was the most inflammatory and had the power to hurt the monarchy the most was that there were two people in the organization, in the firm, who questioned what Archie would look like and how dark his skin would be or what color his skin would be. And the implication was that these were racist remarks about concerns over Archie's skin color. Okay.
I remember like Oprah being like, what? Like Oprah was shocked by this. It was the biggest bombshell to come out of that interview, hands down.
It was the biggest bombshell. And Oprah asked, Harry and Meghan, who was it? And they would not say. Harry said, I will never reveal who that person is that said that. So recently, Omid Scobie, his book Endgame came out and something has gone awry.
So something has gone terribly awry. Okay. And I'm going to read a little bit because I want to make sure I get all these details straight. So the sale of the Dutch translation of Endgame, his book, has been halted. All right. So the sale of the Dutch translation of the book Endgame has been halted because two members of the royal family were named in this book. And the two members of the royal family that were named are the people who were discussing Archie's skin color.
Yep. So it was supposed to be redacted. The names were supposed to not be in there. And Omid was just supposed to say he knows who they were. And somehow those names were published in the Dutch translation.
So I don't understand how this happens at all, especially knowing that Omid is literally like Meghan and Harry's spokesperson. He's their mouthpiece. He's the guy for them who, is always speaking out in their defense.
It just seems so strange that if the name was always going to be redacted in every version, that if he was, that he wouldn't have just said, I know who it is, but I'm not going to say. Or if he put in, like he should have just put in X or Y in place of the name. So I think we both are suspicious that this was done intentionally.
So what I can't understand is, did some people get to know the names?
So the names have been revealed. The names have been revealed. No British publisher will reveal them for fears of litigation with the monarchy, with the firm.
Yep.
However, Chandler, none other than Piers Morgan revealed exactly who the royal racists, the alleged royal racists are, and they are King Charles and Kate Middleton. Okay.
Wow. wild that those are the named people, the alleged,
The two worst
conversation.
people it could be would be William and Charles. So the
Right.
fact that it's just Charles and Kate, like this is almost as bad as it gets.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that it's not the king and the heir, but it's the king and the future queen.
And I think we both thought that it was going to be someone along the lines of like senior royals who are much older, like the and I don't remember who this person exactly is, but the person who wore that racist
Princess
brooch.
Michael of Kent.
Yes, exactly. That girl.
Yes.
That gal.
I thought the closest it would get to the inner sanctum would be Camilla. I actually really thought it was Camilla. And so I was floored, shocked by this. So this is what Piers Morgan has to say, Chandler. This is why he revealed the names. He says, if Dutch people wandering into a bookshop can see these names, then you, the British people who actually pay for the royal family, are entitled to know too. First, it seemed absurd to me that Dutch people should be privy to significant information about our royal family, but British people would be prevented from knowing this. Second, because this whole farrago has gone on long enough and caused enough damage, frankly, it's time we were told exactly what was allegedly said by whom, to who, when, and where it was said, and in exactly what context. Otherwise, this deeply divisive, racially charged sore will continue to ooze its way into global public consciousness. Morgan continued. Third, because in reporting the names, their identities can no longer be held over them as some kind of blackmail threat by the Sussexes. So, yeah. So I think that the most apt thing that Pierce said was the following. I think when he said, it's time we were told exactly what was said, by whom, to who, and in exactly what context.
Right. I think where I maybe am curious is I don't think like King Charles has always struck me as a pretty liberal and progressive person. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe all my royal history is from the crown, so I could be totally off base here. But I guess like it just is shocking to me that this came from Kate, a very young, part of the royal family, and then Charles, who I always deemed to be like pretty liberal. I don't know. It just seems like a really antiquated. If it was indeed a racist conversation, it seems so antiquated, and it's just shocking that it would come from them.
If it's true that it was said in the nature and context of the way it was said, it's completely egregious and utterly shocking that people that parade themselves around as royals and as representatives of the Commonwealth are behind closed doors talking in such malevolent ways.
Yeah,
it's truly truly earth-shattering, and I just don't know. It definitely is antithetical to the personalities that we've been led to believe these people have. And I do think that it's hard for me to truly imagine that they said it in a nefarious way.
Right. I also just want to be like aware, like I know there's colonization, and I'm not saying that I think the royal family have an upstanding track record of all things race relations. What I'm saying is, let me just be clear. I just think that it would be really shocking if it came from them, given, they're supposed to be representatives of the people.
So this is definitely a pretty earth-shaking accusation. I honestly don't think anything will come of it, though, in my personal opinion. I would be shocked.
Yeah.
So,
and I really don't know what the path forward is, because as if there wasn't an already, like, huge rift between them.
Right. I think that it'll be very interesting to see what comes out, what new details emerge. I will definitely be combing the internet for details.
Same.
Anyway, okay, so let's move on, Chandler. What else is going on this week?
We don't even need a transition, because I've been dying to talk to you about the Golden Bachelor finale. I never thought that I would be so riveted by a franchise, but let me just say that watching the Golden Bachelor finale post Hollywood Reporter interview, everyone, if you're listening, if you are not a Patreon subscriber, maybe consider subscribing, because we do a full breakdown of the Hollywood Reporter article that came out about Gerry, the Golden Bachelor. And so for me, watching the finale, which I had not seen, watching it after hearing the insane story, alleged story about him, I was shook.
Honestly, I've watched a lot of these finales of The Bachelor. This is so lame to say, but truly, this finale actually is so dramatic and so good. And I think it doesn't matter if you know about these characters at all. Like, you could just watch the finale of The Golden Bachelor and honestly just go to the scene. Just watch this episode where they meet the the family and then watch his date with Teresa and Leslie and the ending. It is the most captivating 2 hours of television.
Yeah.
I was glued to the screen. And honestly, I was like quietly dying inside through a lot of it.
I was cringing. Like my jaw hit the floor multiple times because I was like, is this for real right now? And so much of that is because of what we know now from this article.
Okay, so where do you want to start with the Golden Bachelor finale, Chan? And
where do you want to start?
First, Chan, let's get into meeting the children. Okay. How did you feel that meeting the children went for both women?
The whole thing seemed so awkward to me. You know, there's something about just like sitting in a room and drinking orange juice with the 2 daughters and the 2 nieces or granddaughters. Yeah, the whole thing just seemed awkward. I think the part that was always just a head scratcher for me is when like the daughters are like, we're going to ask her some hard questions. And that hard question is, if he asked you to marry him, would you say yes? Would you?
That part was honestly hilarious and such good acting on their part. Yes. They're just like, the women are like, I'm so in love with your grandfather.
Yes.
He is so incredible. When he looks at me, he makes me feel so wonderful and seen and heard. He is my other half. He completes me as a human being on this planet. And then you're right. The daughter will be like, listen, I liked meeting Leslie, but I need to know, okay, if my grandfather proposes to her, like, is there a chance she's going to say no?
Like,
and
they
break
really
his
put
heart?
They like put the screws to him.
I genuinely think the producers and the daughters, like the producers told the daughters, like, you have to have some hard question.
Yeah,
and,
totally.
And they're like, okay, what is it? What are they going to ask about? A substance abuse in the past? About their divorces? Probably not. Downer. What if we just create this fictional scenario where one of the women would turn him down after they profess their undying love?
Like, if you thought about it for another 30 seconds, they could ask, like, you know, how do you feel about moving to Indiana? Or like other actual like logistical questions that are, you know, big things you get into as your relationship gets more serious.
Are you really ready to close your eyes for the rest of your life and be married to Kermit the Frog? Okay.
Literally.
That could be a tough question.
Are you going to deal with having to explain to people that the name is spelled like Gerry, but it's said as Gerry?
For the rest of your life. Exactly. Like, have you ever been to Big Long Lake? Are you ready to stare at Big Long Lake for the rest of your life in Indiana? Forever. No, that part was so funny. Can I tell you something else that's funny about this?
Yeah.
So mom thinks that the date went terribly with Leslie, with the daughters.
Oh,
and she thinks that's when everything changed for him. Yes. Do you know why?
Why?
Because she says that when Leslie cussed, she said Gerry was horrified, and the daughters and the granddaughters were horrified, and that is when like the shackles fell from Gerry's eyes, and he was over for Leslie and Gerry.
Mom is literally living in an episode of like Little House on the Prairie if she thinks that's real. Also, wasn't the moment when Leslie cussed when she was like quoting Gerry? When she said, and I want to talk about that moment also, by the way.
Okay, let's talk about it.
So Leslie tells the story to the daughters and the granddaughters, you know, and she says they were like, what changed in the fantasy suite or something like that, as was their question. And I think Gerry made like a sex joke, or maybe that happened with Teresa. Anyways, super awkward. And Leslie, though, says, it happened for me when I heard Gerry accidentally say, you know, the F word. And she says it.
Yeah.
And she said, you know, she kind of covers her mouth and starts laughing. And she goes, then at that moment, I was like, oh, I kind of sighed with relief. Like, I can cuss around this guy. We can cuss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which to me was extremely like revealing about like actually how much they connected. I feel like if you don't know whether or not you can swear around someone and they're about to propose to you, that's kind of a weird thing.
Well, I think everyone's on their best behavior because they're in front of the cameras. You know, he's probably trying to be as polished as possible. I think Teresa alluded to that as well.
They for sure had off-camera moments, or just
no off-camera moments before the fantasy suites. None.
Okay, maybe not off-camera moments, but like, I guess if that's the first time I don't know, maybe he is just a really like buttoned-up guy, but
we have to remember that the entire process is 4 weeks. So I think it's pretty easy to maintain a very buttoned-up composure across 4 weeks.
Sure, fair enough.
But I thought, not to get bogged down by this, but I felt like one of the daughters was like, it's actually so great to see him and Leslie kind of letting loose, because this is how I would expect that he would talk and be with his partner. So I think Mom was totally off the pulse.
Mom's
with
totally
not being
off.
the moment.
Love you so much.
Love
You're
you, Mom.
Completely off base. I want to talk about, though, as we get on with the Leslie date, because it's after the kids leave that kind of everything hits the fan.
Okay, so basically what happens is Gerry and Leslie have really had quite the connection this whole time. And like he says, we've had a rhythm. They've had a rhythm together. You know when a guy suddenly is not treating you the same. Like something has changed.
Like the air changes, like on a dime can't snap. Yeah.
And anyway, so what Gerry has said in interviews is that something happened during the fantasy suites where he made his decision, and he flipped like a light switch to Teresa, and that was it. And Leslie could feel that he was no longer super into her, that something has shifted during the date with the kids. But, you know, you're talking with the kids, it's not one-on-one, so you don't really you don't have time to dwell on it or to dissect it. So it was so funny because they go out from the meeting with the kids. They like sit on this little bench, and then Gary's just like, well, I'll see you later tonight. I think it's time to go. Are you ready to go? Like, and we've never seen him basically like usher someone out like desperately, essentially.
Yes.
And you can feel that something has changed. And then Leslie says that something has changed.
Yeah. And that she could tell by his body language or something, you know, that
Well, yeah. And like, it's kind of like, you know how that feeling when someone's super into you and they also don't want you to leave and they're kissing you and stuff. And then all of a sudden they're not doing that. And like, things are weird. Leslie kind of tries to chalk this up to him being stressed out, him just not being himself or whatever. So they separate for the rest of the day. They get to the evening portion of the date and they see each other, and Leslie kind of brings up that he wasn't himself. And he does that thing where he's like, yeah, this process has really gotten to me. He's blaming it on the pressures of being the Bachelor. And that's why he's not himself right now.
Yeah. Yep.
But it's so funny because he's like, let's turn the page, grab that big old wine glass in front of you, take a sip, let's take a gulp, cheers to us, new beginnings. Like trying so hard.
So hard.
He's just trying to get through the date. That's what you can feel.
And it's like one like platitude after the next.
Completely. And he's like, thank you so much for this journey we've been on together. Thank you for what you've taught me. He's just he's just kind of like saying things literally to pass time.
Yes. And they're all like lukewarm things.
Hollow. Completely.
Yeah. So, and what I wanted to touch on is that Gerry already sounds not super genuine when he is talking to like women he's genuinely interested in. You know, when he says, you're making me feel very special. Sorry for my, Gerry impression. But no, so he already doesn't sound like super real or contrite, I guess. And when he is telling Leslie these things, these like hollow platitudes, it is so cringy because you can just tell that he is so over it. And it just sounds so forced. Like at one point, I feel like she says to him, I love you. And he goes, that is such a nice sentiment.
No, Chandler. So she goes, you complete me. Or I feel whole when I'm with you. Something like that.
Oh my gosh.
And then she goes, I love you so much. Like, I love you very, very much. And he goes, that is such a special sentiment.
Yes.
Like, he's not responding. He's just talking about how when someone tells you they love you, that's a really big deal. Like, he's talking about like the sentence in theory.
I think I threw my knitting needles down at that point because I was just like, my heart broke and I was just dying of embarrassment for her. It's just like, it's so I'm not actually embarrassed for her because he's the weirdo in this, but it just is so sad to see.
Well, then,
and it was literally like a day later after like I don't know. It's crazy.
Then remember this, she goes, I don't know that I can live without you anymore. You know, like I can't imagine my life without you. And he goes, that's huge.
Yes.
That's huge.
Honestly, I have to like give credit where credit is due. The way that he's able to come up with like lukewarm, like nice responses on the fly is very impressive. Like I can't imagine like that's huge.
I cannot imagine telling a guy I'm in love with him and him being like, that's huge. That's huge that you feel that
No.
way.
The next time Ben says I love you, I'm going to say, that's huge.
Huge. Okay.
It's so bad.
Then,
like, I was dying watching this. It's so bad.
The wheels are coming off the bus at this
Yes.
point. Like, Leslie has been trying to keep this ship afloat. She has been trying to suspend her disbelief, to not have her credulity strained. Yeah.
I feel like she's also upping her sentiments. Like, she's she's going further and further to try to pull him back.
Exactly. And like pull those, she wants to be reassured.
Yes.
But in her pursuit of being reassured, she essentially gets pushed off a cliff because like as each, sentiment gets more and more dramatic about her devotion to him, his responses continually get, more pathetic in comparison. And he can't fake
huge.
it.
I cannot.
That's
I will never get over it.
I'm sorry. It's just so good.
Everyone needs to at least just go on Hulu and watch that scene alone because it's worth like all the hours we spent watching this season.
You honestly, as a sociological study, you could just watch this scene play out. So then the wheels come off the bus. He kind of is like, I think it's time for me to
he's like, I think it's time for me to go.
I think it's time for me to go.
Which was like also awkward.
She's unraveling.
Yeah.
And before it was hot and heavy with them. They were kissing. It was like, before they would leave, it was just passionate embraces. And all of a sudden, he's just very, very cold with her in comparison. She says to him, is there anything else you want to tell me?
Yes.
And he says, nope. Just that I have a big decision to make, a very tough decision. Yeah. And so then he leaves and she is just like completely beside herself. Beside herself. Unravels. So then he goes back.
Can I also just say, this is, I don't know, 1 day, 2 days after he says to her in the fantasy suite, you're the one.
I mean, he really, really made it seem like she was the one for him. Like we saw him say to her on the Ferris wheel, you're my girl. You're my girl. Like she said that when she went into that, she had 100% confidence that she was going to be the one for Gerry. So anyway, he comes back. And this is when he basically says, like, can I talk to you? And they sit down. And anyway, I feel like we should just maybe leave it. Should we leave it there or should we discuss this?
I don't have anything to say about it,
Other than it's just like utterly devastating.
It's devastating.
And she nails him to the cross for basically telling her that she was the one.
Right.
And for really leading her to believe. And okay, this is the one thing I want to say somewhat in Gerry's favor here.
Okay.
Is I feel like it's to his credit that he couldn't fake it. Like, I personally feel like he genuinely did have a flip switch. Something happened and he couldn't fake it. He couldn't pretend.
I mean,
and it would be sociopathic if he could be so perfect with each one right up to the very end.
It actually made me want to go back and watch previous Bachelorettes and see what that final date was between the two of them. Like if they're always like 50-50 in terms of affection.
I feel like they do a really good job in a lot of the seasons with you not being able to tell who's going to win.
Right.
Unless you know the spoiler. So I actually think it's like to Gerry's credit that he couldn't fake it. So I think something happened in the fantasy suite where he got the ick with her. Something happened and he got the ick.
I don't know if he got the ick because I feel like after in the morning after the fantasy suite, he was so into her. I think it was the Teresa date where he was like, I'm out. Like, I feel like once he was with Teresa, the switch flipped.
Mom has another theory.
Oh, here we go.
That basically Leslie is super emotionally unstable and a Debbie Downer. And she's always talking about how no one's ever chosen her or picked her and she's never had till death do us part. And she says on the flip side, Teresa is just very nice and calming and reassuring and seems like she has a very secure attachment style.
Right.
And so it wasn't just like the economic stability. It was also the neediness. And maybe there was something where Leslie behind closed doors was not only needy, but also very financially needy. Who we don't know. No one knows.
Right. Also, didn't he kind of say that to Leslie when they finally, doesn't he say like, I just, Teresa had like this, I knew that she knew how to be in a marriage, basically, something along those lines.
So that's what he said. He said that he felt like Teresa knew how to keep a relationship going.
Which made me feel sick. Like, that just made me feel really sad. I feel like that's a pretty terrible thing to say.
So maybe there's something kind of unstable about Les?
Yeah.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. But I honestly am truly shocked because he genuinely seemed much more physically into Leslie.
Yeah.
So it's shocking that he did not go for
I would have
the
bet
girl he
money
wanted.
on the fact that it was
Yes,
Leslie.
completely.
Yeah.
Anyway, did you want to talk about the ending after the final rose?
Yes. Okay. So this is the other moment where like the record scratch for me with Gerry. I mean, it's been scratching like all weekend, but basically there's a moment at the very, very end where they're like, we've got one more surprise for you, for Gerry and Teresa. And Jesse says, we remember on your date to the diner, you talked about wanting to go to Italy. And, we are sending you on a vacation to Italy. And everyone, the crowd goes wild. And, they're like, oh my gosh. And literally within 5 or 6 seconds, Gerry like puts up his hand like,
Well,
like he's got something to say. And he goes, well, that's very convenient because we can use that as our honeymoon. Because we're going to get married as soon as possible. We want to get married as soon as possible. As soon as possible, because at our age, you never know how much time you have left. Which I swear there's like someone, he's got an earpiece and someone at ABC is like, all right, time to say that line again. Because it's like a drinking game. And to me, that some alarm bells went off when he was like, we're going to get married as soon as possible.
They're getting married on January 4th and it's going to be live on TV.
I knew it was going to be televised. I didn't know there was already a date.
January 4th at La Quinta, Palm Springs.
That's just where I was.
Was that where the wedding was that you were at?
Yeah.
Was it beautiful?
It was beautiful.
Amazing. Good for them. I just felt like when he said that, for me, I just wanted to say, Teresa,
wake up.
You don't know what life is like with him. You guys have no clue what normal life is like.
Right.
Your wedding is sponsored, your honeymoon is sponsored, okay? You have a month to get through and then you're married. Like, this guy could be cheap as this guy, like, I don't know.
We already know he is.
When you're in everyday life, we already know he is.
They're just
literally had a woman move into his house and start paying him for utilities.
I mean, the worst part about that article and his cheapness was him having her pay him ahead of time when they went out to dinner so that he could, put down his card and look like the hero for her portion of the dinner. Also, so they're just like literally going to like, okay, finale just happened. They're going to go to Christmas and then they're going to be married. Like, I just really hope there's a prenup or something.
I hope there's a prenup too.
This
is
worrisome to me. And it was worrisome how many times he said, we're going to get married as soon as possible.
Yeah, it was
like,
weird.
What guy is rushing down the aisle like that?
He could for sure. I don't know exactly what guy is rushing down the aisle that way. Very, very concerning. He could fully just be like a dirty John. Like, you just don't know.
And maybe he's not a dirty John fully, because to your point earlier about, him not being able to fake it with Leslie, but maybe he's an opportunist. And I feel like also maybe he's just cheap. Like the way that he said it's very convenient that we can use that as our honeymoon, where he was like, the cost savings of using this free trip from ABC as our honeymoon, like he just seems like so cheap to me.
Do you want to hear my snob moment?
What?
I wanted to be like, what kind of trip to Italy is this?
No,
like a trip to Italy could literally be nothing to write home about. Like, also, how are they getting there? Most of all, where are they staying? How are they staying? Like, what hotels? Because are they going to be in like gorgeous hotels in Capri and Amalfi Coast or anywhere really in Italy? Or are they going to be like, I don't know, at the Marriott?
We've seen the Bachelor Mansion, even the rentals in Costa Rica. Like, it's all very mid.
It's all so mid. Anyway, I wish nothing but the best for these two, though. I do hope it all works out and they have a stunning trip to Italy.
I can't wait to see. I mean, I feel like also any rush down the aisle to a New Year's Eve wedding, a la Tom and Luann, it's just bad omen.
So that concludes our recap or discussion of the Golden Bachelor. I'm definitely going to watch the wedding, so we'll probably talk about that a little bit.
For sure.
But anyway, yes, what a finale, truly.
Yeah.
Okay, one other thing before we depart today, we need to get into Morgan Wade making her debut on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. What did you think when you watched that scene?
Here's what I thought. I thought Kyle seemed nervous. I thought she seemed giddy. She was like playing with her hair, the way she looked at Morgan. And maybe it's just impossible to unsee all the rumors. But you know what else I saw? I I saw how attractive Morgan is. Like, I am into her energy. I actually like her voice. Someone was saying that like her voice is annoying or something. I like her voice. I get it. She has like a pull to her.
I think that Morgan has a swagger. She has like a
Yes,
swarthy swagger that I think is born from an energy of, first of all, not being bogged down by the patriarchy at all, not caring about the male gaze. I think that looks very freeing.
Right. Imagine that.
And imagine that. And I think Morgan truly doesn't care about what anyone thinks about her and very much is her own self-possessed person. And so there is an energy there. I think you and I are big fans of her music. So I think that changes things too for us. But I will agree with you that, Chandler, I felt like Kyle was with a new guy she was into. Like,
Yes.
or not to be heteronormative, but like it seemed like she had completely a crush on Morgan.
I could feel the crush energy. It was like she's looking at her, she's playing with her hair.
She's completely giddy. She's completely like,
right.
You know, when you have that on edge butterflies excitement?
Yes.
And everything, like the person's talking and you're smiling just looking at them. Like you could feel the oxytocin flowing through Kyle when Morgan was there.
Yes. I'm sorry.
Very interesting.
She just never behaves like that around anyone else.
No. It's also so interesting that Morgan's like fully getting mic'd up and being on the show.
I know.
Yeah. So this is just completely wild. A very good episode of Beverly Hills. I just wanted to hear about what you thought about Kyle and Morgan, though we don't have to get too deep into Beverly Hills. Thank you guys for listening this week. Do we have anything else to tell our listeners?
Thank you for listening. Love you all. We'll see you on Patreon.
Yes. Okay. Love you guys. We will be back on Patreon and for subscribers with a bonus episode on Friday. And with that, we'll see you next week.
See you next week.